Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia.
I'm Roy Canday.
And I'm Mike Delisio.
We're really excited, well at least I'm really excited to talk about this new expansion for Dune Imperium. Last year, Dune Imperium was one of my favorite games. It was, I think, my number 2 of last year. So I actually play fewer expansions these days than I used to, but this was one I was pumped about, if only because it provides more content.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
To be fair, most expansions do that.
I understand that, but a lot of expansions also take things sideways.
Right.
And some games you're like, wow, this is cool, but I wish there was more leaders to pick from. I wish there
More
was
of what's in here already.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about. Okay, I agree
And I knew
with
that
yes.
a lot of this was that.
Yes, yes.
Well, you know what? We'll let Z show us what's in it.
Okay. So here we can see, except for the main board, all of the pieces that come in the expansion. And there are also a few things for single-player solo mode that I'm not showing you here, okay? So we are going to get an extra board over here with some technology tiles. We have a board overlay that is going to sit in this area of the board and modify the council there in that section. And we've got new cards for the deck. About half of the deck is what the new cards represent. So they grow the deck by about a third, okay? We've got new characters. We've got new pieces for the players. Intrigue cards, a decent amount of new intrigue cards. Some new conflict cards here. And we've got these Control the Spice cards, which can be used in a version of the game, sort of an epic mode. And you can replace one of your starting cards in your deck with one of these. And you change a few things. Victory points, you are now making it to 12. It changes the intensity of the game a little bit. Also likely makes it a bit longer, all right? So, the broad strokes first. We've got, like I said, a replaced board over here. And we've got this new sideboard. So new locations we can go to now include a couple of new things. Over here, we've got interstellar shipping, okay? And every player is going to have a token at the bottom of that. Every time you encounter this symbol here, which is a freighter, then you are going to either push up your token or cash in your token, return it to the bottom, and take the power of where you are and everything below that. So if I've got one of those now, I could push this up. If later I get two of them, say this one right here by going to that location, I could go 1, and then I could cash them in for 2, and I would get 2 troops. I could move up on one of these, and I can also either take 2 spice or 5 of the coins, and everybody else gets 1. That's what that means, all right? So you'll cycle through this many times in the game with your interstellar shipping. And then over here we've got the tech, all right? And also where you get the dreadnoughts, a new unit that the players have access to. So the tech has a cost in spice. When you acquire one of those, and many locations will give you discounts to that spice. For example, here, you can take a discount of 1 and buy one immediately, or put one of your units right here and use it as a discount later. And then over here, you see a discount of 2, okay? So you can buy one of these. They might give you something immediately. For example, you got 2 intrigue cards over here. This top one, which is quite expensive, but you immediately get 1 point. And then they have an ability. It's either a one-time ability, you know, something that will happen eventually. This end game, you win all ties. Or it might be something such as this one here, where you may choose to trigger it by flipping this tile over, like so. And then next turn, it'll come back, and you can do it again. In this case, you know, pay the cost, get those 3 troops, but you can do that again right now. Once you purchase one of these, we will flip over the next one. And the next one, might be in this one says, when you win a conflict using a dreadnought, you may return a dreadnought to your supply to gain a victory point instead of taking control of a board space with it. Let's talk about that because that is something new as well. So the dreadnought you acquire right here. You're going to get a dreadnought. You can buy one of these. The dreadnought will go to your garrison. And then you can choose to, of course, put that into the combat as you would any other soldier, any other unit. The power of the dreadnought is, threefold, okay? First, they count as 3 strength towards the fight instead of 2 for the usual soldiers. 2, when you lose, you do not remove this unit. Instead, it'll go right back to your garrison. So once you've built it, you've got the dreadnought. And then lastly, which is what that was referring to, if you win and there's a dreadnought in the fight, then you get to use the dreadnought to control one of these 3 locations. You can put it there, and you will have control of that until the next turn, okay, for one turn. Even if somebody else had control there, you can put this over their flag there, and you now have temporary control, okay? Once it's done, then, it'll come back. So that's what the dreadnoughts do. That's where you can get them. Besides that, let's go ahead and talk. That's, like I said, the broad strokes. That gives you an idea of what the game modifies, what's going on. We've got new characters, of course, which are going to have all sorts of new powers. There's quite a bit of text on some of these. I'm not going to bother with that. But there you go. That's what's going on. You are getting 6 new characters to supplement the 7, I believe, that are in the original game. Quite a bit there. And then a couple of new symbols as well that you are going to find on some of these cards. The main one and the most interesting one is probably this symbol right here, which means there's a slight silhouette of a character right next to the symbol. That means this person can infiltrate a location. If someone is already at a location, and in this case, one of these down here, then you, with this card, could infiltrate that space, go there even though it's occupied. That's what that means. And it's, obviously lets you get around having something be taken from you, and then you can visit that place yourself. We've got dreadnought symbols. We've got this new symbol here, which means if this card would ever be discarded or trashed from your hand, you can still take this ability at the bottom. Or you can just reveal it at the end of your turn as normal. Just ignore this, and you still have those abilities. Again, that symbol there letting you put one of your cubes here and get a discount later on in the game. So there you go. That's all the new cards, and they're, again, going to do all sorts of different things, mostly manipulating the new overlay and the new tech. One final thing I'll give you a glimpse at are some conflict cards here, the new ones, where you can, have some shipping prowess there, and then some new intrigue cards as well, which are going to give you, again, the ability to manipulate these new events, these new options, get a dreadnought, discard some cards and draw some new ones, deploy units in the middle of combat, that sort of thing, all right? So there you go. Expedite, get that shipping happening faster, and so on. So there you go, everybody. That's basically, again, what's included and how this is going to change the game. Let's go back up top.
Okay, so let's go through these things piece by piece and talk about what we think. So first of all, there's the more stuff. There's 6 new leaders, there's a pile of new intrigue cards, and a pile of...
the new combat cards.
The new cards you can buy.
Yeah.
Combat cards.
Yeah, there's a few. There's like 4 combat cards. The intrigue cards, there's a solid amount of those, like 17. I just talked about it. And then the main thing I thought when I saw the rulebook, it said 35 new deck cards.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's not that many. But next to the original deck, it's about
big.
half of that.
It's a ton.
It's a
So
lot.
it
You
makes up,
see those cards.
it now makes a third.
Yes.
It now makes a third of the deck if you shuffle it in. So there are enough.
Yes.
New symbols, all that new stuff. This will not be diluted away,
Right.
which I think is also something to watch out for in expansions that do this.
Right.
I agree.
I personally liked I thought it was neat to draw all these new cards. I really like that. But those having more intrigue cards is really cool because it makes that deck more different and the cards that are there. You never know what cards are going to come out. And I was even happy with the new fighting cards because now something may not come out for sure with some of those. And I liked some of the new combat cards. This feels, if this only had the cards, the new cards, I would have been like, wow. It felt refreshing just from that.
I would still get it for sure, just to have more variety in the game.
And the new leaders, having more leaders is good. Some of those new leaders definitely tilt towards the new mechanisms in this game.
Yes.
You can't play with at least 3 or 4 of these liters unless you're also using the new board.
Oh,
Right.
definitely.
Right.
Yeah, they do the new shipping stuff with the signet ring. They have to do with the new stuff. Yes, absolutely.
One of the things I thought was most interesting about this is how the spice in the game is completely different. Like the fact that you used to only go to a space with spice to try to get more of the selenium or whatever to get the money. Now there's lots of opportunities to spend spice in different ways as far as like the technology and things like that. So it gives more value to that specific resource.
And that's the big change that we need to talk about is really tech. There's a couple of smaller changes, I think, like having the dreadnoughts. A change.
Yes.
Change in line with what's there before.
Actually, I disagree with you on this.
I think it's a big fighting unit, but I don't think it's as distinct as tech.
I just don't think tech's the biggest change in the game.
Really?
I think the freighters are
shipping.
by a mile.
You mean the dreadnoughts?
No,
you mean the shipping track?
That's the shipping track.
That's a big one.
I think that everybody uses that.
Yes.
Not everyone does tech. You can actually ignore tech and be okay.
Yeah.
That moving up that
great.
shipping track, that I can't imagine playing that boring space underneath it anymore.
That's the
shipping
biggest
track
thing. Is what it replaced was probably the least exciting part of Dune, the base.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I think they did a really good job of. Is they took spaces that were usually situational at best and turned it into something that everyone wants to do all the time. You know what I mean? Which is great. So I like that a lot.
I agree with that. I think that is you're right. Those that will always happen. And you always have that great choice of, do I keep pushing up,
Right.
cash in later for more stuff, or I need this right now?
Right.
I need money, I need spice, 2 extra soldiers will come really in handy.
Yeah.
I'm about to
Push up on the
lose to
influence
you over
tracks.
here, so I'm just going to cash it in at the middle.
Yep.
That's all. It's the tension just got ratcheted up again in this box.
Right.
and it's subtle, but I think the fact that to go to the space that lets you move 2 on that, you need to have that relationship with the shipping guild.
influence, yes.
Which
Yes.
in the original game, they only did with the Fremen for the one space.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I like having that extra thing, because now you're like, oh, maybe now. I just feel like the choices went up.
It's
They
a
did.
thematically, that's also
Yes.
a tick up, right? It's like, shipping, smuggling.
Right.
Hey, you got to be in with the Spacing Guild. Or the, so I like that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to detract from tech, but I also like tech. But if you could put tech in any game in the world, you could be like, we're playing Catan with tech, and I'd be like, I'm in.
I feel like some of those techs are really powerful, though. If you're able to get the right one, like there's one if you're on the High Council, you get like +4 swords in combat. If you get that early game, and then you're just like, I'm going to win combats because I get +4 extra that you just see here, you can kind of use those tech to play towards the powers you want if you're able to grab the techs that you want. You know, it can kind of be like, I got one that allowed me to discard a card from my hand and draw a new one, and I was trying to get Spice Must Flows. That helped a ton to make sure I was getting the cards that gave me 2 of the influence to get the cards out. So there's lots of techs that, since there's in 3 different stacks, you can kind of see which ones you want to go for. And then that's another thing to just race for. It's like, I gotta get enough spice so I can get over there and grab it before the other player grabs it, because they're gonna get it before me if I don't. It's just, there's always had that tension in Dune, and this just adds even more of that.
My favorite tech was that one where when you buy a card, you put it on top of your deck.
That's
My word, that's so useful in this game, which is not a strong deck builder.
Right.
And we've done it's been a little bit of a love fest here, and deservedly so, I think. But that also brings up one of the negative things, I think, and we definitely mentioned this in one of the games we played, was that the tech, since you have basically those 3 random stacks, you can set up the next player in turn order really
and
well.
You don't even know.
Yeah.
You don't
And not
know.
even realize it. And that could be a little bit deflating in a game where points are so tight, which is one of my favorite parts of this game in general. And the expansion, if anything, I think increases the tension that you feel when you're playing this game. This is a game where every single point you feel like you're really working and scrapping for. And so if you happen to reveal a tech tile,
Well, this happened when we played,
it
right?
did happen, yeah.
And that's, again, it's also my biggest problem with it. The game is so, the incremental, 1 point is so meaningful in the game.
Right.
1 point. That if I buy a tech card, because it's got a pretty interesting power, and I got nothing else I'm doing, I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. It lets me discard a card and draw a card. Wonderful. And then the next one, you buy it, and it gives you a victory point, then I feel really stupid, especially when the one I bought is not a game-winning, guaranteed, this will be a point in 2 turns kind of tile.
Yeah.
Which I think means that from now on when I play, I will not buy one of those if I cannot guarantee it becomes a point in 2 turns. I'm picking a random thing, but...
Well, also, though, if no one else has spice, I would buy it because you're not going to get the next one.
You have to just pay attention.
I think I think it might stagnate if there are 3 on the top, they're not the most rambunctious powers, and everyone's kind of sitting on spice. No one's willing to be the one who goes, I'll refresh it.
Right.
Well, there's 2 things. One, there's at least 1 power and a couple cards that lets you trash text for points and things like that.
Sure.
So then you might buy those lesser ones. And I just wish, I agree with you guys, it's also my weakest part. I love the tech. I just wish they had 3 piles. Weak, medium, heavy. I mean, great tech.
Oh, right.
Buy one from
So they're just seated by the number of spice. I guess
you could even make a rule by that. Sort them out by their prices and make 3 piles. I don't know. But I still like buying it. I think
I do too, yeah.
I just don't mind. Although, did you guys? We played at different games.
Right.
When you played, did you find? Roy mentioned he got that card. It was like, oh, I'm going to win combat. I found that the combat scores went up dramatically with this expansion.
Dreadnoughts.
Absolutely.
The Dreadnoughts are 3 now. They don't go away.
Right.
Once you build it, it's built.
Yep.
Unless you win.
Last game we played, Mike was rocking one of the new characters that the Dreadnoughts are worth 4.
Right. So the first thing I did was get Solari to build Dreadnoughts. And I had a couple of times had my combat over 20, which I never had that before.
Same thing happened here. I never have gone over 20, but there's cards that say get +1. There's text. The +1 for every card with a sword on it.
Yeah.
Oh my word, I just was like, wow!
Yeah.
I had a
Came
card.
to Arrakis for sure.
It did.
I had a card where I could drop my influence on one of the guilds and get 5 swords.
Wow.
And that happened, and I won that. I pulled out a couple of quick. I mean, my combat was fairly weak.
We thought you had no chance.
I like that you can have those. Volatile might be the wrong word, but I can make something happen that you weren't expecting.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Tiny problem I have with the game, component-wise, I put my Dreadnought on the board at least 3 times because it's the same size as your workers. And it doesn't look that different.
No.
If you stand it up, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I know.
I
I just
down on its side.
It's not that I don't stand it up. It's my workers are laying down in front of me.
Well, there you go.
I do find it interesting though that the fact that when they win a combat, they go on those flag spaces.
Yes.
And it gives the person with the Dreadnought more opportunity to use those flag spaces. But it felt like those were so hard to get in the first place. You had to win a previous combat.
Yeah.
That when you finally win one of those and get one of your flags on there, and then someone immediately puts a Dreadnought over it, and you're just like
Who
the
would
next
do
round.
that though, Roy? No one would do that.
It's like cool. You barely ever get those flags, and then you still don't get to utilize the points for somebody actually going to that space. It's the person with the Dreadnought on it. Cool, great.
Yeah.
The one little measly spice I was gonna get.
Yeah, but I don't care about that because I always thought that the reward for the card, I didn't ever like. I was like,
Right, it's
whatever.
normally the reward for
Now
the
the
card.
Dreadnought, I'm like, ha ha ha, I'm getting it for sure. Also, it
So the
says,
Dreadnought's out of the combat.
yeah, it also takes it out.
Cycles, yeah.
But that means that those spots are controlled more often.
Right.
Right.
But I
And
think
I like
mechanically
that.
that's actually a very smart decision too, because Dreadnoughts are already, pretty powerful, and they already come back to your garrison. They don't go to your supply. If you were able to just every turn, it'd be too powerful.
They
So
go
it's a
out.
really
Yeah, it takes
smart
care of 2
decision.
things.
It's a really smart mechanical decision.
Yeah, it takes care of 2 things. It goes out and controls locations that don't always get controlled.
Right.
It's a thing on the board that might not happen.
Right.
And then it takes it out of there. Right. You're
yeah.
like, oh, you won? Go, patrol somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so,
Go ahead.
well, what's your final thoughts on the game then? And rating?
I like it a lot. Obviously, I think we all do. I think as this is an expansion you're probably going to want to get if you've played Dune Imperium a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think it fixes the original game. I don't think the original game needs fixing.
I agree.
I think the amount that's in here is not tremendous, but it's a good amount. Especially the cards are great. I got no problem with half of the the new cards making up half of the old deck. That's great. The rest of it is good. I do think the game is going to be thinkier. It's going to be more puzzly. It's going to be slower. It's going to be, I might even go as far as to say, a little grindier. So again, if you're really familiar with the game, that will be alleviated. If not, you're going to feel it.
Oh, for sure.
But having said all that, I really like it. This is a strong. I'm going to go with an 8. It's a very strong 8. I might even go higher eventually, but yeah, it's great. These guys are going to go higher.
I love Dune Imperium. It was my #1 game of the year last year. I love this game a lot, and I just love more variety and more options in the game. It's cool to see more characters that you can be at the beginning of the game, which just adds more replayability and more variety, just more spaces to go and more interesting decisions. I think this is going to be a 9 for me. I really enjoy it a lot. I love adding more cards to deck building games and just more things to draft into your deck with more options each time you play. Just lots more replayability is what that's going to add to you. The fact that the boards are like overlays on stuff is slightly annoying to me because it's like, man, I really wish that I could have a play mat that would work with this now. So get on it. But other than that, I really, really like it. Really awesome.
Yeah, a lot of the things, I don't want to parrot too much of what both of you said, although I also absolutely adore Dune Imperium. This is a expansion that still feels like the things that I love about Dune. It's almost just more of it. The tension that I like about Dune, that turn angst.
Yes.
Every single time I'm taking an action in this game, it's like a stomach gut thing where it's just like, this ramps that up. I agree. I feel like it probably adds to the length of the game a bit, and it does add a little bit to that kind of grindy nature, but to some extent, that's part of what I liked, is that you just have that tension. So I'm coming with an 8.5. I think it's excellent. But I don't know that you need to start with this. I think I agree. I think you should start with the base game, get 2 or 3 games at least under your belt before you play with this. That's just my opinion.
I agree. This kicks up the difficulty.
Right.
Well, this is where I'm going to disagree. I'm also giving it a 9, but I'm never playing without this again. And even if it's new players.
That's fine.
New players, you're learning this expansion. It's not that hard. You don't even know the difference other than that board, and I also find that annoying. I don't know how else they could have done it. A sticker, but I'm never.
You can't go back, right?
I'm never going back.
Make a new board.
A new board works.
Or a playmat would be nice too.
That's true too.
But I just like that ship track so much.
It's great.
I like the new cards. I like the more variety. Even though tech in my head is the thing I like the best, I'm like, ooh, more text. It's actually the part where I'm like, that's just a cool extra way to spend spice.
Right.
Sure.
But the variety of cards that come out, you very rarely see duplicates. You get to use stuff more. I don't know. I felt like everything is cooler. There's a few minor things that I'm like, the one where you can put some cards, you put an agent on the board that.
Oh, yeah, the infiltrator.
Infiltrator.
Something like that.
But that's such a tiny part. It's very possible you'll never see one of those cards.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of them.
Right.
But the fact that it ramps up combat makes it very different. Last year, a lot of people compared this to Arnak. They're not even remotely alike even then. Even more so, it diverged from that.
Agree.
So, yeah, I like it a lot. So, that's Dune Imperium Rise of X. Where's our upgrade pack? Anyway, until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia.
I'm Roy Kennedy.
And I'm Mike Delisio.
Have fun. Flowing with the spice.
Okay.
My Dune.
Well, speaking of like you played it, Mike shows how this one plays.
You got it.
You want it? You
This
got
has just
it.
devolved into.